Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Run. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Today we have a special guest, but beforehand, let's just go ahead and get right into the show. So first of all, let me get to the page. Here we go. Title of the show today, Lisa Conyers discusses welfare for the rich. And secondly, or actually we're going to do a little bit of this first, the politicization of COVID-19. Lisa Conyers discusses welfare for the rich in a manner all can understand. Her new book gives examples that will shock most. The politicization, I always mess this word up because it has an extra syllable that I always kind of forget to put in. The politicization of COVID-19 is hurting us all. Lisa Conyers on a necessary mission. I interviewed Lisa Conyers this morning to discuss what she found out about the rich, which she documented very well in the book, Welfare for the Rich. We go into a healthy discussion on many economic issues, including some dealing with the welfare for the really needed as well. At first, I wasn't exactly sure from what direction I was going to interview her because based on her previous book, I wasn't sure where she was on the scale, if you will. But you know what? None of that really matters because what we had was a darn good discussion on the entire issue. But anyhow, look, for those of you that are here in Texas, like many other red states, California kind of has some issues as well, but not as bad, are in dire straits. When you politicize healthcare, viruses, and that sort of thing, you hurt us all. And that is what's occurring right now. What is it going to take for people to try? There's something that I talk about all the time. One of the things that have occurred in America and this has been going on for too long, is what I call the dumbification of America. The dumbification of America is where we no longer preach science. We no longer preach real history. We no longer teach people how to think for themselves. And what happens then? What happens then is exactly what's happening now. We don't know what is real. We don't know where we are, and it hurts us all. And when it comes to having something like a pandemic, it is worse. And why is it worse? It is worse because you can infect me. I cannot easily protect myself from you infecting me. I don't remember the name of the doctor. Yesterday on MSNBC, he got kind of pissed off. And I could understand why. I want you to listen to what he had to say because it's really prescient. Check this out. We know it couldn't be long. Dr. Vin Gupta laid into the president for what he did in Tulsa and what the implications are. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
2 additional White House advanced personnel have tested positive post-rally in Tulsa. Your reaction to this, and is this just the tip of the iceberg in your view?
Absolutely the tip of the iceberg, Brian. This is the worst case scenario. We knew this was going to happen. Begged the president, don't do this. Every public health experts across the continuum on air saying, please don't do this, at least have it outside, because we knew there was going to be individuals positive, unfortunately, in his own team that would then be potential super spreaders. And what you saw just 2 nights ago was horrific. You saw a bunch of individuals not wearing masks, not obviously socially distancing, and then you had a president say that we should be slowing down testing, which is the exact opposite we should be doing right now. We should be testing everybody that was in that arena now, a week from now, and then doing contact tracing. But is anybody going to do that? No, because the president said, well, hopefully they will, but the president wasn't even saying, let's slow down testing, which is criminal. It's public health malpractice at this point. So this is horrific. I'm right now in an ICU caring for COVID patients. This is not what we want to be hearing. So we're very worried about the Tulsa situation and future events like it, because as I understand it, this is not going to be the first of its kind.
Doc, where's Mike Pence?
The vice president, let's be honest, Brian, I don't want to hear from the vice president because he's just been a megaphone for the disinformation campaign from the very beginning. What I would love to see is Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx be given the microphone back.
Now, let's be clear. So that is a medical portion. But when we look at it from a political standpoint, we have to look at it this way. Donald Trump has made that rally fatal to many. It is imperative that we don't allow this to slide. We must make this rally fatal to his re-election campaign, because he has proven time and time again that he's a clear and present danger. What do you do about a clear and present danger? You get rid of it. And how do you get rid of it, especially one that has a cult next to them? You break off those folks that are not cultists but are in it for themselves, because the only people that can support Donald Trump are those with cultish behaviors or those who are just looking out for their economic interests, because when they add things up, for whatever reason, they're doing better with Trump. We have to make Trump fatal for those people, and we can do it. And this is a good start. Anybody who would put people's lives in risk like this would put any American's life at risk. Now, the interesting thing is right here in Harris County, we are likely the hot spot in the country with this virus spreading. And it has several reasons. One, the governor has taken away the power of the local authorities to rule the way they need to rule to protect the city, and in the process hurt many of its citizens. We have a large pockets, large segments of those people who abide or follow or believe in all these crazy conspiracy type theories, and they hurt. They hurt us all. They hurt us all. And the combination of idiocy, the combination of lack of scientific knowledge, attached with not being able to govern, which is what the governor has done, created this dilemma in Texas. So what I want to do is I want to play you an interesting interview between the person, the highest level executive in our county, who just had a discussion on MSNBC with Chuck Todd. And then I had some commentary that I want to play after that. So check this out. Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, competence in a sea of incompetence. I want you guys to listen to an interview that she did a couple of days ago with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press Daily. She tried her best not to really speak up against the governor, while I think she had every opportunity to point out the incompetence from the governor right up to the president of the United States. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
We are now in a situation where we are coexisting with COVID-19, where we do not have to choose between either returning to jobs or protecting health care. We do have the tools and the strategies in place where we can achieve both of those ends.
That was Texas Governor Greg Abbott this afternoon assuring Texans that there are plenty of beds available if they get sick and that the economy can also reopen, even though for a fifth day in a row, Texas has broken its record for coronavirus-related hospitalizations with more than 2,500 reported today. And that looks, as you can see there, the curve is going up. The state is also seeing an uptick in new daily cases, a number likely to increase as the state continues to move forward with its reopening plans. Retail businesses can now operate at 50% capacity, and restaurants are now allowed to operate at 75% capacity for dine-in service. And masks are recommended, but they are not required. Today, Abbott gave no indication that he will hit a pause button on reopen, like his peers in Oregon, Utah, and Nevada have done recently. And officials in the state's largest cities, Houston, Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio, though, are sounding the alarm. One of those leaders is around Houston. Harris County, where Houston is located, is the largest county in Texas. And joining me now is that county's top executive, Judge Lena Hidalgo. Judge Hidalgo, I know we had a bit of a technical issue, but old-fashioned telephone works pretty well. We just heard the governor say and reassure this idea that you can both reopen safely and you can handle this influx increase in hospitalization. Is that the story in Harris County?
Look, I want to be very clear with people. There's 2 points to this. One, our hospitalizations are increasing for COVID day after day. We're at all-time highs. The 7-day increase and the 14-day increase are all statistically significant. The other point, and I agree here with the governor, is we still have plenty of space. Now, what we have to take away from that is this could change overnight. And I'm not in the business of tempting fate because it's our community, our healthcare system, our lives that are on the line. So what I'm telling my community, Houston, 33 other cities and unincorporated areas, is we're on time right now to not overwhelm that hospital system, but we can't push it much farther. And even though we've got room in our hospitals right now, that doesn't mean we want to see you there. That's the crux of this, is
Judge,
let's work together to stem this.
A couple things. Number one, do you have enough contact tracers in your county, in your opinion, number one? And number two, what are you learning from the tracing? Is this a spike that is spread out, or is there some concentration or rhyme or reason to this?
Yeah, and that's what's interesting is obviously there's so much texture to all of this. We launched a contact tracing effort very, very aggressively ahead of schedule when the governor announced the reopening. My commitment was, look, I would have done this in a different way, not as fast, but I'm going to do everything I can to make this succeed. And so we had folks onboarded, an army of contact tracers. We've got over 400 people now, and we have more capacity than the demand. So in theory, yes, we have more. We have the capacity to interview more than the cases that we have each day. We have the capacity to contact more than the contacts that we have each day. But yet, with that, with the testing, with going into nursing homes, everything we're doing, we are not seeing a positive impact in the spread of the virus. We're not seeing our public health interventions really make a dent. And so my hunch is that the numbers are just so high, the degree of spread is so big that we really need the community to pitch in here. When you map out the contacts and the cases, the vast majority of them don't have those epidemiological links. We don't know how they got it, how they're connected to one another. So we're very much at the edge here where we really are tempting fate. And so that's why we need folks to remember we need them to minimize contacts. It's not back to normal.
If you could design a gradation of pausing here, what would it consist of? Do you want restaurants back at 25% capacity? Would you like gyms pulled back? Are there a couple things you'd like to see the governor have more leeway on?
It's what I'm doing right now and telling the community directly is I no longer have the authority to issue orders and say this needs to be open, this needs to be closed, as I did early on in the crisis.
Right.
But I do have the ability to communicate with the residents of this county. And so we unveiled a very clear color-coded system. Right now we're at orange, which means we're not at the point where we're right about to run out of hospital space, but we can if we keep going in this direction. And the guidance is minimize all contacts. So if you are somewhere where you can't keep 6-foot distance, where you're sitting close by to somebody for a continued period of time that is not a member of your household, you need to go do something else. And you know, what can you do? Drive-in movie theater, be outside, go buy something from a store, in and out, clubs, bars. You know, yes, I think to a large extent, restaurants, if you're nearby, you just can't avoid that close contact. And odds are, if the person behind you who's not in your household has the virus and you're sitting by them for an hour, you know, you might catch it. So that's what we need everybody to do their part. And I want to give this community its best shot to succeed because I want the economy to be sustainable.
Judge Lena Hidalgo, good luck. I can hear it in your voice. You're, I think, hopeful but you want to be realistic. I get it. I think a lot of us get it. Let's remember, please wear a mask. Everybody that's listening, please wear a mask. Anyway, thank you, Judge.
Thank
Up
you so
next,
much, Chuck.
you got it.
Lina Hidalgo, Judge Lina Hidalgo, competence in a sea of incompetence. When you have a president giving rallies with, it was supposed to be several hundred thousand people, it turned out to be 6,200 people. But when you have a president that is out there lying to people about not the virus not being as lethal as it is, when you have him putting his own people at risk, when you have a governor trying to lick on the tails of a president and follow all his wishes, knowing that he's hurting his own state, when you have a governor that is taking away the power from local authorities to allow them to best protect their communities, we get the increase in Harris County and many other counties with governors and poor leadership, willfully incompetent leadership that does these things. When you have a Homeland Security director like Chad Wolf, who goes on national TV and state, oh, things are going right, opening the country at the speed at which we're opening it is just fine, in as much as we're finding that the increase in people getting infected and being hospitalized will actually hurt our system and likely put our economic recovery in dire straits and make it worse than if we had acted more responsibly instead of following the whims of an incompetent president who knows nothing about science, who cares nothing about science, even as he has competent people like Fauci giving him advice. Luckily, our governor here decided to relent. He found an out to relent by the local authorities saying we will force businesses to where we want to be able to force businesses to enforce masks in their locations. Well, suddenly they allow that to occur, allow people to wear masks by command in order to protect society at large. I tell you, we as the largest, as not the largest country in the world, not the most populous country in the world, but one of the countries that have the highest rate of coronavirus. It is sad that the country that claims to be number one is the one that has the hardest time fighting this virus. Lina Hidalgo, competence in a sea of willful incompetence. Wish her well that she can continue to move this county in the direction it needs to be moved, because the old guard has certainly failed the county. The old guard has certainly failed the county. It's time for new leadership, because all these guys are simply playing that good old political game, and this really has got to stop because it is killing people. The governor of Texas is now responsible for a lot of deaths in Harris County. The governor of Texas, because he is following his insipid, unintellectual, science-deprived leader in Washington, is now causing the deaths of many Texans. And many red state governors, because of their intransigence, are killing or maiming or injuring many of their citizens. Remember, it's not only that, well, only a small percentage die, 1%, even though that is many more people than the rest of than any other disease like the flu or whatever. Yes, a lot of people die on average from this coronavirus, but it's in the grand scale of things, I mean, 1%. Oh, so if you lose your 1% of your workforce, you can still kind of recover, right? If you're that capitalistic thinking, using that capitalistic thinking process, you don't really care about humanity, it's just numbers. In slavery, you had to take care of the bodies. In capitalism, you don't even have to take care of the bodies. One body dies, just get the other body. That is the magic about capitalism. It's the most efficient form of slavery there is. But anyhow, so what we have now is governors saying, go to work, kill yourself, because remember, we don't own you anymore. Kill yourself. We'll throw you away and bring the other one in. It's important for you guys to understand this. You see, when I was speaking to our next guest, Lisa Conyers, I explained that to her. I said, that is exactly what happens now. Nobody really cares. The real people that matter in this country are those people that are working the Burger King, sweeping your floor, emptying your garbage. We kind of found that out with this coronavirus epidemic. We kind of found that out because they have to go to work. And because they have to go to work, and because they have to go to work in places where they cannot protect themselves, they die. And then they say, oh, it is those Latinos and black people dying. So send folks back to work. Send folks back to work. That's what it's all about. Because of who are the ones dying? The ones of the lower economic stature. That is why it is so easy to say go back to work. Because other folks can stay behind their computers and work at home, or they can minimize themselves because they do have the PREs to wear. They have jobs where PREs are okay to use, even, but you work in certain areas, cutting food, doing, you wear your PREs, but because of the state of the condition, you don't really have that much power. So folks, let's understand that and care about your neighbor. Welcome aboard, Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard, Michael D. Newton. Welcome aboard, Melissa Noble. Welcome aboard, Mike Cisak. Welcome aboard, Curtis Jacobs. Welcome aboard, Lawrence Sims. AVQ, my brother. Welcome aboard. Look, share. Don't forget, folks, we need you to share these programs. If you haven't shared it yet, all of you that are listening, please share. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget, go give us a top chat. Go give us a top chat by giving us a super chat. Hit that $sign. Now, we are going to go into this interview, and on the back end, I may have another video to show you about what I did on Tamara's show this weekend, because I think there's some prescient information in that little soliloquy I had on her show. But let's go ahead and get into Lisa, and then we'll take it on the other side. Thank you guys for listening. Please do remember to share. Welcome to one more edition of Politics on Run. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. We are here with Lisa Conyers, who's the Director of Policy Studies for the DKT Liberty Project, as well as co-author of The Human Cost of Welfare. Conyers works on ways to tackle inequality, protect civil liberties, and improve welfare systems, for example, by reforming drug law policy, encouraging immigration, limiting federal spending, and curbing civil asset forfeiture. Her work has appeared in the Los Angeles Times and Huffington Post. She holds an undergraduate degree in American Studies from George Mason University and a master's degree in management from the University of Maryland. She lives on a sailboat.
Yes, I do. In fact, I'm on my boat right now.
Lisa, did you know the envy that went through my brain when I heard that you lived on a sailboat? It was like, what a life.
It is a life. It's a nice way to live when you're writing books, for sure.
Yes, I know. You're writing books and you can get to think, and you go out on the deck and the nice salt air is over you. That is great. But anyhow, we really want to discuss the issue about welfare for the rich. And it's a subject that I cover in detail on Politics Done Right quite often. It always comes to pass whenever I'm talking about these issues to remember that movie Wall Street with Gordon Gekko saying, greed is good. Greed is good. So in that light, the first question I want to ask is, define welfare for the rich as you know it, because people always think, it's only poor people, lower class folks in Appalachia, people that look like me, those are the ones that really are always searching for welfare. So tell me a little bit about what you define as welfare for the rich.
Well, welfare for the rich is the idea that rich people are getting money from the federal purse, right? I mean, we all have this agreement when we pay taxes that we'll give money to the government and they'll, spend it on good things. And they do provide welfare for the poor, right? But you never think about the government taking our tax dollars and giving them to wealthy people that don't need them. And that's our definition of welfare for the rich. It's money that goes from American taxpayers into the federal budget and the state governments also, and goes to the pockets of wealthy players who really don't need the money. And, whether it's in any industry you look at, people are getting all kinds of benefits that they really don't deserve and don't need.
Now you talk a lot. I mean, in one of the ups that you sent me, you had something about how comes we pay for baseball stadiums to build them, and most of us can't afford to go ahead and watch a game in there. Kind of tell us a little bit about that process, because I think that is a first entry. So what sort of an entry that everybody can understand
Oh yeah.
right out?
Well, stadiums are just, I'm sure we're all aware of just how big business is in professional sports, but stadiums, and study after study has shown that stadiums are a really bad investment for cities. They don't, cities don't make money on them. They don't, states don't benefit. Local people often, as you said, can't even afford to go to a game that they're paying for the stadium, but then they can't afford to go to the games. And yet, time after time, football teams, basketball teams, baseball teams manage to convince their local communities to pay for these things. And, they get tax breaks, they get the city to build all the infrastructure for them. And it's pretty absurd because most owners of professional sports teams are millionaires and billionaires. They could afford to do it themselves, but they seem to think that the local people should pay for their stadium for them.
Why?
Well, it's interesting. If you interview people on the professional sports side, they'll say, "Hey, we bring team spirit to our communities. Look at how look at Seattle. How proud they are of the Mariners, or how proud this other city is of their sports teams, and it brings people together." And they'll make that argument, or that sports is good, and that it's a great way to build community. That's their argument. Or they'll say, well, we'll build the stadium, but what's going to happen is that next to the stadium, there's going to be hotels built and, restaurants opened and all this economic activity around the stadium. And so it's actually a benefit to the city to have the stadium. You want the stadium, you want us to come because we'll bring all this economic development. But in practice, that doesn't often happen. It's actually not a moneymaker in all cases.
Almost in no case. I mean, right here in Houston, we've built 3 stadiums in the last several years, and nothing has changed for actually 4 stadiums, and nothing has really changed for the people that live around the stadiums. But for what it does very well is bring a lot of people into that area of town, spend a lot of money, and then they're right back out of there to the suburbs and elsewhere.
Right.
Now, don't you think there is an indoctrination process that occurs in this country that really puts the masses have the masses believing that something they're not worthy of gain? Because I think if you take a look at what's happening right now, COVID-19 is a big thing. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that we've been able to see right now is who are really essential workers.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why is it that we are still concerned about keeping the pay of essential workers as low as it is, when we are now noticing that their value is that much greater to society? And that, I think, ties perfectly into welfare for the rich, but even bluntly into when you speak about the book, what is the name of the book?
Welfare for the Rich.
You're right. But also the human cost of welfare. Is that another?
That's another book. So the first book we did was actually on the welfare system. Right. And we looked at, and basically what we were looking at is how the welfare system actually prevents people from getting out of poverty, and how it puts them in a position where it's risky to go to work instead of encouraging them, to make it easy for them to transition from not working to working. So that was the first book we did. And while we were doing that book, we had people say, well, why don't you talk about all the money that the rich people get from the federal person? We said, well, that's a good follow-up to the human cost of welfare book. And so the second book we've done, which is coming out in August, is Welfare for the Rich, which is all about corporate welfare and that kind of thing. So, but they are tied together. I mean, and what's interesting is, like you said at the beginning of the show, when people talk about or hear the word welfare, they think, oh, poor people getting, food stamps or whatever. But they never think about, what welfare really is, the government saying we need to take care of, a certain population. Well, it turns out that we give a lot of money to corporations and rich people that don't need it. And to me, it's the same exact thing. It's welfare. It's money they're getting from the government, and the government seems to have decided that that's okay, that's perfectly good use of taxpayer funds. Which
no, I think what is interesting, and I don't know if you guys went through the numerical analysis on it or not, but the welfare that goes to the rich is actually quite a bit more substantial than what goes to the poor. Have you guys,
Oh,
did you guys do the numerics on that at all?
it's almost impossible to do a numeric because it's so broad and widespread. Corporate, like, the welfare system is pretty defined. I can go into the federal budget. If you read my first book, we have pretty good numbers on all the different programs. But with corporate welfare, I mean, it goes everything from federals, spending to state spending to local spending. And it's so many different categories. It's property tax abatements, it's zoning, special zoning for people, it's farm subsidies. So it's just a ginormous number. It's huge. But I would agree with you that it's probably way more than we spend on, welfare for the poor.
Yeah. Now, listening to sort of where you're coming from, what I'm getting from sort of the conversation is, my hunch is that in writing these books, you may lean a little bit more towards less government involvement, correct?
Well, I think that it depends on what the government's doing. I mean, it's everybody would agree. I mean, I would think that there's a pretty standard contract between taxpayers and the government that, hey, we're going to pay taxes and you're going to do services for us. We want a defense, we want rule of law, we want safe cities, we want, streets that, that we can drive our cars on, those kinds of things, right? And then we can argue about some people would say, well, maybe government shouldn't be involved in healthcare or shouldn't be involved in education. And those are arguments that Americans have all the time. But I think that we can all agree that what the government really shouldn't be involved in is tilting the playing field towards wealthy people. And that's what this book is all about, is all the ways that the government is basically taking our dollars and giving them to the rich. And, so if that's what the government's doing, I'd rather they didn't. So if you want to talk about smaller government in that way, I would say, yeah, I'm for smaller government if it'll get them to stop writing checks to Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all these, wealthy people that are billionaires and don't need it in order to function.
Well, I tell you what, I'd like to play an experiment with you right now. Why don't you enumerate in your book what are the unnecessary welfare payments that you see that predominates what the wealthy gets, that's undeserved, and as far as welfare for, let's say, the average person from your previous book, and this is a twofer. I'm going to make sure and put both of those books on the blog posts that have you in there, because awesome. I want that contrast, because after that I want to go into I want to explore a couple of other things with you there. So what would you say the people in your first book, where you talk about the people, the welfare system for the poor is stopping them from being for going for a job or doing something more productive, and welfare for the rich, what is it doing, why it's undeserved?
Well, I mean, we did not argue in our first book that welfare was undeserved. We argued that that we wish that the system was more responsive to the needs of people, instead of just telling people, because for both books, so for the last 10 years, I've been traveling around the United States doing interviews. Mm-hmm. So for the first book, I interviewed a lot of people on welfare all over the country. And then for the second book, I did a lot of interviews of people, either wealthy people who are getting money or the people who are affected by the fact that these wealthy people got money. So in the first book, we just argued that instead of telling people, look, we'll give you we'll give you food and housing and healthcare and all that, but we don't want you to go to work. And the minute you earn $1 over $12,000 a year, we're going to cut all your benefits. We're just going to make it so risky to go to work that you're just going to not go to work. And to me, that's a pretty logical. I mean, if I were in that position and I was like, well, I'm taken care of right now, but if I take that job, which I could lose, then I'm going to lose all those, supports that I get. And we argue that why don't we make it such that we'll help you, but then we'll also help you get out of poverty, get into a job. We won't take all your benefits away right away. We'll give you a chance to transition. And that was our main argument. And we just felt that people would be happier if, the people that I interviewed would tell me, they'd be like, I feel I'd much rather be working than taking this welfare money. But the government's put me in a position where if I'm going to lose everything, I'm going to lose my kids' health insurance, I'm going to use my subsidized housing.
I mean, let me interrupt you a second, because I'm so happy that you said that, because that is exactly right. I mean, I've spoken to a whole lot of people as well on welfare, and the reality is there are a few of them that it's systemic for few. But the vast majority of folks want to go out there and be as independent as they can. And
Yep.
that little bit that is sort of that is systemic, you don't care about those really because it is such a small amount, but that is what propaganda, that is what our news media highlights when
Yep.
they're talking about these issues.
Right.
I'm gonna go off your book a little bit here.
That's okay.
There's this thing called basic income where they said give people a. I don't. Are you familiar with it at all?
Oh yes.
Or-
Oh yes. Very familiar. I wrote about it in that book.
Okay, great. Where people get some money every month, a stipend, and they do with it as they please. And there's some experiments that are occurring right now. I've interviewed some people at Netroots where it's actually successful. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that I'm kind of on the fence about it because I think it's a great idea, especially in the current environment. It would make it's just a tragedy to see so many people out of work and so scared about not having any money, not being able to feed their families and all that. But the downside of it is, will we create a system sort of like we have now with the welfare system with people not working because, hey, I can get by? And there's a book, I forget who wrote it, but using it as an example, well, here in California, put 4 surfer dudes together and give them each $1,000 a month, and all of a sudden they've got a house on the beach and they're surfing all the time. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, it depends on what you want, what you believe about human nature, and whether you believe that people need to be producing and part of community and part of society and part of something bigger than just hanging out. And so I struggle with that one because I've read, a lot of the economists on both sides. I've looked at some of the studies. Some of the studies have shown that it can be successful. Other studies have shown that it does tend to decrease people's entry into the workforce. So it's complicated. It's nuanced. I don't have a set answer on that one.
Yeah, personally, I think we're a complicated being. You're right, but I also think we're indoctrinated. Right, we're indoctrinated from birth to get up in the mornings, go to school, then you go to work. That is a civil thing to do. That is a civic thing to do. And I think basic income with an educated population, a population that knows that there's value in work and it's what we do as a society. I think when we stop teaching civics in school, what it is like to be a good American, that really hurt, because what it did is that a lot of externalities come in and teach people things that needed not be taught. But back to your book, I just kind of wanted to, since your book was about welfare for the rich, I always want to contrast that with the other side, because what I find is a lot of things are done for the rich. In other words, we always look at things in a perspective of the rich. And I think when we look at society, the people that are really producing the most are the vast majority of folks out there. Those are the ones. In fact, the rich are living off of the backs of everybody else.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's what our book argues, is that, we taxpayers are paying into the system and the rich are just sucking that money out and they don't need it,
Right.
But it's interesting you would say that because with this COVID-19 thing going on, right? What was the first thing the government did when this started to happen? They passed a financial, gift present. It was Christmas at the Fed, and all of a sudden the first thing they did was take care of corporations and the rich and make sure that they had, money still going to them. I mean, trillions of dollars were, Stephen Mnuchin was just writing checks, right? And then we started looking at, oh, by the way, our population is getting sick and our hospitals can't handle it and we don't have the equipment and supplies we need. And then we had that very slow botched response. So I would say that's it's too bad it didn't make it into the book, because the book had already gone to press, but that would have been a perfect example of how our priorities are all screwed up. Why was our first thought, oh no, what's going to happen to the rich guys, when it should have been, what's going to happen to us?
Exactly. It is funny because these are supposed to be the smart guys, and they apparently don't understand how economics work. We all know that economic activity is what creates an economy, meaning the speed of money going around. And if you're rich and if you have your sailboat, if I give you another $10, you're not going to go spend that $10. You're going to put it on the table somewhere. If I give that $10 to somebody who doesn't have a penny, that person is going to spend it right away. That is economic activity, because the burger he buys is going to have that burger place buy some more bread. Who's going to buy more from the farmer? Who's going to buy more fertilizer? I mean, people, it is almost like, and I hate to say this, it's always like what we've had now is a dumbification of America. And that is the reason I like, when I saw your book, when it came, that is the reason I wanted to talk to you and highlight that, because I think it is high time for us to kind of peg the rich down a bit. It's not about rich envy. It's about equity. And I've noticed I didn't say equality. It's about equity, equal access to success.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, and when you said that about how people will spend money, if you give people, you know, $10, they'll go and spend it. Where the corporations, what did they do with the money they got with these last bailouts? They banked it. They didn't spend it. And then they let hundreds and hundreds of employees go, you know? And so I think that money could have been so much better spent getting into the hands of the people, you know, people who rely on a check coming in every month, you know, rather than being, you know, to prop up these corporations. Boeing got $17 billion and they haven't built a functioning airplane in a decade, you know, what's that all about? So that's, I mean, my book is just chock full of examples of, you know, these systems that are just set up by the rich to protect their money or their property, you know, and the effect that it has on taxpayers and the poor.
You know, and I think that is important. So, I mean, writing a book like that, and even after writing the previous book that you have, which I'm going to go get myself, because I've always wanted to see more of these types out there, because we just don't, there's a lot of writing out there, but what I find it's either too much, how should I say this? I don't call it extreme, because I'm an extreme lefty, but a sensible extreme lefty, if you will. In other words, one that wants things to work, one that believes what it seems like what you believe about, are billionaires really, are they really billionaires? Is there anyone that should be a billionaire?
Right. Well, I always look at it as a human being. It's that body. How can that person, that one person, have that value? That's not even logical, you know? How? And then, I mean, I grew up in the developing world. I grew up in, you know, places like Bangladesh and India and Afghanistan. And, you know, one American can support what we produce, what we use and consume, can support, one American support a whole village in Bangladesh. You know, I mean, the inequity there, you know, the unbalance of that is just, shock me.
And that, but you know, Lisa, the thing about it is, that is what we learn. That is by design, right? In other words, we learn that if I'm new to politics. No, I'm not new to politics. I'm new to this particular field, but I'm an engineer by training, and it always behooved me that the engineer designs the product, creates the product, but somebody who capitalizes on it makes orders of magnitude in salary more than the engineer. And when the bonuses are paid, most of the bonuses go to these financial types. And that permeates the entire system called, and I don't want to get you in trouble with your book, but called capitalism.
Right.
Yeah. That is what it preaches. So, I mean, under that purview, there's nothing wrong with it. It promotes, in my opinion, I'd love to hear your opinion, it promotes inequality, because it says that your worth is that whatever the worth that you have, which is whatever they are able to make on your worth, isn't yours.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's funny that you would say that about capitalism, because I think that the capitalists in our country, the capitalists that are, you know, that I describe in my book, are actually very much not capitalists. They're not pulling themselves by their own bootstraps and making their own money. They're taking massive amounts of money from the government. And wait a minute, what is that called? People call that, I think, socialism. Yeah. You know, they want, oh, wait a minute, you know, all those people, you know, who live, you know, that's bad. But what are these capitalists doing? They're doing exactly that. And it doesn't matter whether it's Bill Gates or Elon Musk or these sports stadium owners, you know, it's all, you know, they're all just saying, well, yeah, you know, they'll tell you that they, you know, built their own empires, right? But then when you go look at their balance sheets, no, they didn't. They had all kinds of subsidies and supports and gifts from the taxpayer that they don't mention. They never mention that in their books about how they got rich.
And you know, there are very few people that have the guts to say that, because it's not the right thing to say in our system. That, you know, somebody once said, you didn't make that, and got into a whole lot of trouble for saying that.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was true. but it was walked back.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I've been told that I'm crazy for writing this book and I'm going to get in trouble and those guys have resources and I should be scared. And it's like, well, I'm just calling it what it is, right? I mean, we're just pointing out this stuff is all available on the public record. Anybody can look this stuff up. Anybody can Google, Elon Musk tax subsidies and it'll come, but people don't like to hear that. Yeah, they like to believe that he's this really, really cool dude that built SpaceX all by himself, or Bill Gates with all the things he's done. And I use them because they're very well-known names, but there's plenty of billionaires who are playing this same game, and they'd all like you to believe that they did it all by themselves. And, and they never want to talk about the fact that they take subsidies.
Well,
it's crazy.
That is great. That is great. Well, Lisa, I enjoyed talking to you, and I want you to keep writing books like this. You'll be featured here anytime because people need to know this stuff. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't ask you?
Oh, I mean, if we had all day, I'd love to tell you stories from the book and some of the crazy, things that I learned that I didn't know before I started the book, just how big and massive this system is. I mean, I think most of us know about, farm subsidies or, like you said, stadiums, but you'd be surprised to know just how many different parts of your life are touched by these systems that are all slanted towards getting your taxes.
Give me a couple, Lisa.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for example, I didn't know much about tariffs until I started this book. And it turns out that a lot of the tariffs, which, Donald Trump calls himself a tariff guy, right? And he was imposing and still continues to impose a lot of tariffs. But a lot of tariffs are actually slapped onto goods that poor people buy. If you look at tariffs on shoes, expensive shoes don't have a tariff on them. Cheap shoes have a big tariff on them. And there are all kinds of examples of things that the poor would buy and use in their everyday life. Backpacks for school, just different things like that. Work boots have a huge tariff. High-heeled shoes don't have a tariff. Well, who needs work boots? Somebody who works in construction. So if you go through the tariff guide, there's all these examples of where the poor can't even get a break on what they're buying, to wear to work or to wear to school. And that was one that I had no idea about. And now tariffs have become a big conversation, another one is the energy industry and how much the subsidies, like we'd like to believe that all these tech guys are like really, they're not taking government money. Well, sure they are. All of the data that you have on your phone is being stored at data centers that are getting massive subsidies. They don't pay property tax and things like that. So that's just crazy how this affects so many different parts of our lives.
Lisa Conyers. The name of the book is Welfare for the Rich. Look, thank you so kindly for having been here on Politics Done Right. I'd love to have you again. I'm waiting for that third book. Whatever number of book, but what's the next book gonna be?
Well, I'm hoping to find a way to write a book about all these bailouts that are happening right now. So I have to find somebody that'd be willing to, to send me out for the next 4 years and write about that. I would love to do it.
I'm sure you will.
Right.
Lisa Conyers, thank you so kindly. Politics Done Right. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That was I did that today. Her book. I'll have a link to her book and all of that, both in her independent blog, the independent blog post that I'm going to write on her interview, plus under this particular blog for the show today. Anyhow, I don't think I have enough time to play the other piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the first. Welcome, Rose. How are you doing, my friend? Let's see if anybody else showed up other than Rose that I haven't already acknowledged. Para ver. Estoy bien. Okay, let's start reading up. Oh, some new message just came in. That's Rose. Okay, let's go. Lauren says, we know it's real that Dirty Donald is increasingly and incredibly incompetent and dangerous and willing to do anything to deflect from his inability to govern and dangerous activities and policies and efforts to get reelected and avoid going to court, possibly prison. He's not going to be reelected, and he is likely going to prison. Okay? I think that the machinations that they've been doing in New York, that is what they're attempting to do. It's not about the now. It's about knowing that he's going to lose. Michael Rudnin, slow the testing down will cause the deaths of tens of thousands. The Lincoln Project has another yeah, I'm actually it's funny that you brought up the new one with him saying slow it down. You know, Michael Rudnin, I'm writing a blog piece on that today. I've already started it. I'm going to cut up that video just to make sure that I can play bits and pieces of it into a new blog today. I think I'm going to do that today when I'm done with the show. Michael Dean Newton says the MSM said Trump did his classics. Translation, he lied, is not his greatest hits. And of course, we have Mike Cisak. How is Mike going to get to me today? He says, of course, Egberto hasn't kept up with the scientists from who have stated that people who are asymptomatic are not spreading the coronavirus. And after they made that statement, they came up with a correction because they didn't want to get the wrong message out. And you know, interestingly, I have the smartest people watching Politics Done Right because Rose came back with the very, very answer that one needed to hear. She said, replying to CSAC, this makes sense because if they are totally asymptomatic, they won't be sneezing, etc. I'd love to know what the situation would be of someone asymptomatic for COVID, but were spreading fluids because of sneezing from allergies, for example. Guess what, Rose? You are so smart because that is the answer. You know, it's not even like magic or doctor or medicine you need to know, right? The virus spreads if you have the virus. In other words, if you have the virus and you put the virus on somebody, that's what spread and cause. If that person is asymptomatic, but when they tested that person had the virus. If the fluids from that person goes on to somebody else in their areas of absorption, of course that person is going to get the virus as well. What they're talking about is an everyday activity because you're not, and Rose, you hit it on the money. You're not sneezing, you're not putting out those fluids, etc., etc. You just have the body chemistry that is resistant to the drug. Many people have body chemistries that is resistant to certain types of cancers. Many people have the body chemistry that is resistant to certain diseases. As an example, black folks don't have great resistance to whatever it is that causes sickle cell. Other people do, whatever gene mutation or whatever is there. I mean, it is, and when I say, I shouldn't even say black people, certain types of black people. Certain types of white people have a particular prevalence of certain types of breast cancers. I think there's this I don't remember the name. I wrote this in my book about this particular mutation that when women have that sort of mutation, many of them go ahead and cut their breasts off because they know they're likely to get it. So thank you, Rose William, for immediately immediately answering that statement, because it is a dangerous statement if it's not understood what the World Organization was doing, and they made sure to come out with a clarification. So thank you so kindly. Let's see. You're right. Yes, I'll tag you, Michael. You're right that another good example for asymptomatic people can spread it anyway. My point was that the experts are saying that it's less likely to spread by asymptomatic, but not that they can't continue to spread it. That another good example. That's okay, good. All right, top cause of coronavirus spread: person who is infected, coughs, sneezes, talks loudly, yes, yells, etc. Causes droplet spread. Someone touches what exactly? Thank you very much, Michael. You're on the money. Let's see if there's anything else I need to cover before we kind of get out of here in the next 2 minutes. Michael Dean Newton, we placed a public interest notice on this tweet for violating our policy against abusive behavior, specifically the presence of threat of harm. From Donald Trump. Yeah, I think I saw that. Actually, that was in my thread because I follow the great Donald, you know. Civil asset forfeiture, dirty cops stealing from people they arrest. Total amount exceeds all burglaries and other petty theft. Guess going to talk about this? Oh, you know what? Maybe I should let me check that out. That is very interesting, you know, because, you know, people like to praise the police. I have never praised the police. I praise people who do good. If there was a police that treated me with respect, I wrote a blog about him, he got a commendation. If a police does wrong, we tear into him. They are nothing special. They just represent what all of us represent. Anyway, we got to get out of here. But before we get out of here, you know what I got to do. I got to say, folks, please, please, please consider subscribing to Politics Done Right. We do need your subscriptions. To subscribe, please go ahead and subscribe at patreon.com/politics done right. That is, I just put it into the feed, patreon.com/politics done right. Alternatively, you can go via PayPal. And to do it, thank you very much for being here, Michael Rudnin. You can go ahead and go to paypal.me/politics done right. That is paypal.me/politics done right. And you know, I just realized we also have Cash App. So you can go here, Politics Done Right on Cash App as well. I think that's it. Politics, I forgot the S in there. Politics Done Right on Cash App. And on, what is that other one? Venmo, it is just venmo.com/politics done right. And of course, you can shop at our store by going to Politics Done Right. store.politicsdoneright.com, where you can get our book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, or the book of me losing my procedure for losing weight as I had to for health reasons. And of course, our cup is out there too. Actually, we have several designs of the cup, several designs of t-shirts, all of that good stuff. Please go out there. In all that you do, whether you get our book, subscribe, or whatever, you are ensuring that we can continue to do this, promote info. Exactly, Rose. BRCA1, BRCA2. It's in my book as well. I covered it because they tried to patent that gene, Rose. They actually tried to patent the gene. Something that the nature provided. Melissa said there is an atheist group that meets every Sunday that is more of what I understand a true Christian is. They have weekly speakers to do exactly what your doctor guest speaks of. Really enjoying this interview. Thank you so kindly, Melissa. Folks, I didn't put on my store. Anyhow, folks, let me tell you. I do know that you guys have where to go. There are many places to be on the internet. If you are here with me, I know that I appreciate your presence. Whether you're on YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, or Facebook Live, thank you so kindly for being here. Please do remember to share, and share. I'm thinking about changing times to increase our viewership because this time, a lot of people are working and doing other things. But if you share us a lot, we get thousands of people after the fact. I'd like to get more people during the fact. Anyway, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics